Welcome back to the Pitch Podcast. My name is Eric Wobenaw, the president of the Baseball Blue Book. And today we have a very special guest and a special episode on the Pitch Podcast. Today we have a truly remarkable guest, Jenn Sterling, a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of The Boys of Baseball and the Perfect Game series. Jenn is going to bring a great perspective to the world of baseball, offering insights and stories that captivate audiences of all backgrounds. Whether you're a baseball fan or simply curious about the game, you're in for a treat. Get ready to dive into the fascinating world of baseball from a unique and insightful angle with Jenn Sterling. Jenn, welcome to the Pitch Podcast.
That was literally the best introduction I have ever had. I feel like a superstar.
Thank you.
That was amazing. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I appreciate you joining me. It's going to be a fun episode. Typically, it's coaches, baseball journeys, vendors of baseball. So I thought this would be a lot of fun because one of the things that you find in the game of amateur baseball is the mom's perspective, the lady's perspective. And when I mentioned to my wife and some other ladies in my life, they all knew who you were because they've read your books. So let's start talking about what the books are, your spin on romance. Basically, they're contemporary romance novels with a baseball flair. But let's hear it from you. You kind of summarize what you do.
Just like you said, I write baseball romance. So technically in the romance world, since my first book, The Perfect Game, starts in college, it's considered this genre which called new adult, which is basically following kind of college romances. So I write romance books where the main guy is a baseball player. So with The Perfect Game, we start in college with this girl who has just transferred there, and the guy is like the hottest baseball player on campus, right? He's projected to go number one in the draft. And so I wrote this story just very much like centered around this guy that everyone at school worships. Very typical, like every girl wants to sleep with him. He's a total player. I mean, it's just this very baseball romance. And then, of course, the girl is, the one girl who changes it all. Because as females, we want to be that for the hottest guy on campus. We want to be the one girl who makes him change his ways. I mean, it's a total dream. And so that's what I wrote.
Well,
there is a lot of drama in the book, and I would like to say that I tried to stay very realistic to baseball from my experience, and I write the book in dual point of view, which means that I write it from the guy's perspective and the girl's perspective. So it was very important to me to tell a story as a girl, what it was like when you start dating a professional athlete, and from the guy's perspective of what happens when you're the big man on campus, but what happens when you do get drafted, number one, and kind of your world shifts because there's so much focus on you and all these, girls who are trying to get at you. Just this very kind of ugly, realistic side of stuff that happens.
Now, why do you have a unique perspective on that? Tell me your background of what brings kind of your understanding of what this world looks like.
Well, so I was very much raised on baseball. Like my father raised me on the Dodgers, which nod to your hat. I appreciate that hat that you're wearing so much. It made me so happy. My dad raised me on the Dodgers. So I've been a baseball fan, I feel like, since I was born. And I played softball for 12 years. And then I dated a baseball player. And then I gave birth to a baseball player. I just have a lot of guys, are friends of mine who ended up going pro. Like I went to Cal State Fullerton during a year where I think the whole entire freaking team got drafted. So it just was being able to kind of be around these people and getting to know them and just having an intimate perspective of the drive, the superstitions, just kind of everything that goes along with being a professional athlete. And then now as a mom of a professional baseball player, just all of that just the mentalness that goes along with being a ball player. I feel like if you do not know these guys, then you're just guessing.
That is so true. You know, I spent a lot of my time interviewing coaches and talking about the type of players they're looking for, the right attitude. The one thing that they talk about a lot is the right fit, right? And I always ask, well, what the heck does that mean? It really goes back to that type of player. And across the board, the type of player baseball players are, they're kind of, they fit, you know, you don't want to typecast them or put them all in the same bucket. But you really can, from what you just said, from the superstition, the routines that they go through, blend that with the writing of that romance. You've talked about, what I love about it is the big man on campus, the baseball type attitude, the girl that comes in there. Bring that into some realities that you've seen. And not, I know you're writing a nonfiction book, but where have you seen some of these things, even with your son and the level that he's at?
Oh yeah. I mean, so with this book I wrote, The Perfect Game I wrote and released 12 years ago. We're just kind of giving it like a whole new rebirth and rebrand because there's so many new readers out there who haven't read it. So this book was very much written from a perspective of me like dating a baseball player, right? Whereas the Boys of Baseball series very much comes from me more as a mom perspective. So in The Perfect Game, if I'm writing this from kind of like a girlfriend perspective, I put things in there like how other girls, I mean, I don't want to talk crap about other girls, but like how they will set their sights on somebody and try and get him. If he's a baseball player and they think he's going to get into the MLB and that's something they want, they don't care if he has a girlfriend who's long distance. They don't care if he has a girlfriend. Well, she's not here. I mean, girls can be scandalous, and I don't want to feel bad about that because it's true. So I put that in the book. So that kind of stuff, like, you know, just having girls just really being relentless as far as like wanting what they want because they see a guy who's going somewhere and they want to be part of that. I'm trying to think of like what else is in here without, I have to say there is something so dramatic that happens in this book that in The Perfect Game, that it could only be fixed with the most grandest of grand gestures. And I need anybody to know, if they go out and read this book after they hear this podcast, just please know that I knew that it was ridiculous when I was doing it, but it had to be done. So I had to have my main character ask for something that is just so freaking bananas that you can't do this, right? But it was the only way to fix the book. Like, it was the only way to make this book. It had to be a grand gesture. It had to be the grandest of grand. And just know that I know that it was crazy, but just accept it for me. Just accept it.
I love it. I love it. So you've branched out to other areas with your romance novels outside of just baseball. Is the theme continuing through like the big guy on campus type things, the ladies that are trying to going after it, or do you see difference between the baseball players and other characters that you might write?
Oh yeah, no, so I write just all kinds of like contemporary romance. The Perfect Game by far is my best-selling series. So it's a 3-book series and it follows a couple. The first book starts with them in college, him getting drafted, dealing with all the drama of, you know, what it's like trying to date long distance, trying to keep this relationship, not being able to do that, right? The second book, he's fully ingrained in the MLB. He's in New York. They're living there. And so it deals with like her dealing with the fans, how the fans love you, because my character is a pitcher. So how the fans love you when you're winning for the team, but
Right.
how they will turn on you, especially in New York, if you're not throwing well. And so her trying to deal with that, him trying to deal with with that. Um, Also her trying to make friends, because as I'm describing this to you, I feel like, gosh, I do a lot of women hating in this book, but it's not about being like women hating. It's just about being truthful and honest and realistic, and how it's very hard to be friends with the other like wives on the team, especially if you're not a wife, if you're just a girlfriend. Like, there is hierarchy, right? There is different levels, so people aren't always nice to you. And that's just kind of women in general. Sorry, ladies. And so the third book deals with, they're still together, they're very happy, but it deals with like an injury, right? So then what happens when he gets injured, and what happens when he thinks he's going to be on this one team until he retires and he gets traded. So I really threw all these very kind of big baseball, like very true to baseball nuances in these stories, and really tried to do them justice. Also, of course, with the third book and the second book, she's trying to balance a career with also being his girlfriend, and really trying to fight for independence on like, well, there's stuff that I want to do. Does this make me a weak female if I just give it all up and follow you around everywhere? Like, that's something that women really struggle with when you're dating a professional athlete. And it kind of, you have to make a decision, really. And in the third book, being a parent and him dealing with all the guilt of missing everything. When you're a parent and playing in the MLB, you do not have a lot of time, and you're not there for a lot of stuff. You miss a lot of things. So I really did try to talk about all the things that I feel are very real, but still make them romantic.
I think that's great. You know what? We are with it's Pitch Podcast. The Pitch Podcast with Jenn Sterling, author of the Boys of Baseball and the Perfect Game series. So Jenn, I know previously we were talking, and you said that you're excited about being on here because you've talked about books and public, producing them, whatever it is. We're going to stay with baseball. So talk about,
Yes.
Okay, you're a big Dodgers fan, and we can't go without talking about this year's team, some of the changes that are happening in the game. I guess the first off, you grew up as a baseball fan with your dad and family, and then you gave birth to a baseball player. What's your life? I mean, talk about baseball. What do you love about it? What keeps you involved in baseball? Why do you love it so much?
I think I definitely love baseball. I feel like because it is the one sport that I just know so intimately. And playing softball for 12 years, like, I understand how everything works. I understand the plays they're going to make. I understand what you would do when this person's at bat and who's on first and second and where you're going to throw the ball. I do not feel like I understand any other sport to that level at all, nor do I want to, because I don't care. I don't care about any other sport except for baseball, and I literally don't care about any other team except for the Dodgers, which literally drives like my fiance crazy, because we have fought over this, and I'm curious which one you are. I am a team girl. Like, I am loyal to a team. Now, look, I love the Dodgers. I absolutely loved Corey Seager when he was a Dodger. But once Corey Seager got traded, I don't follow Corey to his next team. Corey's gone. Corey's dead to me, right? Like, I mean, I do love Russell Martin, but I don't even follow Russell Martin to his other team, right? Once you leave the Dodgers, I don't follow you anymore. But my fiance is like a player follower. Which are you?
It's interesting. I am a team follower, 100%. I'm a Pirate fan, and that's why Russell Martin is one of my favorite players as well. So it's funny that we both have a similar player that we really like. He helped the Pirates get back to the playoffs first time in almost 2 decades. So he's one that I really like. But I am absolutely a team follower, and I think that is baseball. And you as a baseball mom playing softball for 12 years. Baseball is one of those things that is an individual sport, but it's a team sport. And
100%.
It's a real interesting blend, right? People have got to 100% focus on what they're doing because it's just them and it's one against all, right? It's the pitcher against the whole team. It's a batter against the entire team. So it is individualized, but there is the team aspect. And I think, and it's changed. The problem I think is players moving all the time now. So it's kind of like, I'm just stuck with the team. I can't follow players because you're going to follow 15 different teams over 5 years, right?
I mean, my heart is still, when I hear Russell Martin's name, like it just gets a little warm inside. I loved him for so long. Like he was my favorite Dodger for so long. And my son actually got to meet him 2 years ago when he was playing up in Quebec. And I was actually at a book signing and he sends me a photo of him with Russell Martin and I'm like screaming in the middle of this book signing. Everyone's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "It's fine. It's fine. Blake's with Russell Martin." And everyone's like, "I do not know what you're talking about, Jen." And I was like, "Just give me a minute. Give me a minute."
So Russell's a unique. Well, he's a unique player. Why Russell Martin? I mean, I think he's a good player. I have my reasons for the Pirates, but what made him stand out?
For me, I feel like I don't even know how old I was when he was on the team. I think I just really liked him because I thought he was a really good player. And he was a good catcher and I loved watching him play. And then I thought he was cute, and I'm sure I thought he was very handsome, but also he can't just be handsome and suck. Like I thought he was a good player, and he just was my favorite, and I just get very loyal and very attached. And so if I have a favorite player on the team, like that does not change until they leave. Like before Russell Martin, it was Eric Karros. Like I was obsessed with Eric Karros. Like he was my favorite player, and so once they leave. Then I hate when they leave, though. It makes me so sad. I wish they would never leave.
I know. Well, this year's team, you got a number of players that you could pick as your favorite.
I'm not going to have a favorite this year. I don't have favorites anymore. I mean, I feel like I really don't. I'm like, oh, I really like him. Oh, he's really good. I feel like I don't love anyone the way that I feel like Russell Martin was my last person that I was really player that I was attached to, that I really rooted for. I really did like Corey Seager. He was so fun to watch, and then he got hurt and was gone, and then he came back, and what a comeback. He just seems like such a nice guy. His wife seems super sweet. I just really, really like them. I really like Corey, and then he got traded, and I was just like, this is a mistake. How can you let him go? I was actually mad. I was like, this makes me really angry. Yeah. And I still root for him. I want him to do good things, but I also I don't want him to beat the Dodgers.
Of course not. Of course not. Well, there's been a lot of things happening. I mean, you guys, people are starting to label the Dodgers almost as like the Yankees of back in the early 2000s. It's the
I've been hearing that for the last 7 years, and everyone says that to me like it's supposed to be offensive, and I'm like, I'm not offended because the Yankees were unreal. So if you think, and also, how can I be offended by that when it's like my team gets to the postseason every year and chokes? You can't offend me by telling me that we're this when we can't even make it past the postseason. So I don't even want to hear it.
It's something that's wonderful about baseball. It's so embarrassing. Well, and being a Dodgers fan with the Giants just up the road, I swear they come in with their average mediocre teams and come right through and steamroll through the series.
I can't stand that team. Let me tell you, I lived up in Northern California for a handful of years, and growing up as an LA Dodger fan, this is what I've told everybody. Growing up as an LA Dodger fan, we were not raised to hate every other team. Well, I was not raised to hate every other team. I was solely raised to love the Dodgers. Yeah. So when I went up to Northern California and lived there, they were raised to hate the Dodgers. Yeah, they love their team, but they're raised. I have never been around meaner people talking more crap to me on a consistent basis anytime the Dodgers play the Giants. I was like, wow, I never even thought about your team before, and now I like hate them with such a vitriol. I want to put them in every book and have them go out of business. Like, you guys have made me hate this team that I never cared about.
Well, we have a mutual agreement on that. When the Pirates traded Barry Bonds to the San Francisco Giants, I became a hater of the San Francisco Giants, and so it destroyed all my hopes and dreams of having a World Series team. And when he won everything out there, it just made me disgusted.
Yeah, forget about it. That was like the worst. I think I was living there at the time. That was awful.
So, okay, so your son, he's playing in the not minor leagues, but professional ball at the Frontier League. We all love the Frontier League. A lot of changes that are happening in Major League Baseball with the reductions of the draft as well as the minor league teams. Let's talk about your son. What's going on with the Boomers, and to give a little shout out to their team and what they're doing out there.
I actually love them. So my son Blake plays for the Schaumburg Boomers. So I'm so excited because season is starting soon, and that means I get to spend like a bunch of weekends in Chicago in the summer, which is so much fun. This will be his 3rd year on the team, and I love that because I kind of love that stability and that consistency of having like him be on the same team, because then like all the fans are there and they know him and they root for him. It just becomes like a nice community when you have the same guys there. It's really cool. The Schaumburg is like, what a neat town. The stadium is stunning. I love going there. They're so much fun. They've never let me throw out the first pitch though, which I'm a little upset about because this girl can throw a baseball. So I don't understand. I don't understand why they don't let me do that. But I'm super excited for Blake's season, and it's been very fun to have him there and to have this reward for him, because as any parent knows who's listening, you know, the majority of us have been doing this since our kids were little tiny, right? Blake started playing baseball when he was 5 because you weren't allowed to play any younger than that. And so your whole life revolves around this sport. And being from California, it was year round, right? So Blake was playing baseball year round. We're talking maybe 6 weeks off during a year, which I really don't recommend. I don't think that's great for them when they're that little. I don't think necessarily that they should be, everybody always ends up with like an elbow injury or some kind of injury because you're doing these repeated movements for just way too much time and not, you know what I mean? They don't know how to stretch yet. They don't know how to work their body quite yet. But Blake didn't want to do anything else. He just wanted to play baseball. So, you know, we did everything that I'm sure is at an even more level now than it was when I did it, with like the showcases and the tournaments and travel ball and regular ball. I mean, it just is nonstop. But I look back at it and I'm like, we have so many memories and we went so many places and did so many things that if you took baseball out of the picture, like, what would we have been doing? Like, what would I have done every weekend? Right. It'd be so boring.
What I love about your books, they do parallel your life. You've got a series or a few books that are, like you said, it's about the dating, dating of a baseball player, and then you're growing through it, and it's almost parallel to your life. And then all of a sudden, it's about the kids that you're raising and the different perspectives that you have as a mom, right? Give me your feeling on watching. I mean, you've talked about being proud and being able to see there, and fans are cheering on your son. He didn't make the majors. He still has the opportunity to make the majors. Was it worth it?
I mean, I just honestly, I just want Blake to be happy. I want him to enjoy playing baseball. I want him to want to be there. You know, I'm glad that he is getting paid to play. Do I want him to get into the MLB? Oh, that would be a dream, right? Like, of course, I want that if he wants that, right? Yeah. And at this point, I just feel like I don't know what what his chances are. I don't know what they're looking for. I don't know what he needs to do. Like, my son is not like a home run hitter, but he gets on base all the time, right? It has a tremendous eye. He usually leads the team in walks. He does not strike out a lot. Like, he is a phenomenal hitter. Like, that's his strength. So it's just really fun to watch him play as long as he is still enjoying it. And when he's ready to hang up his cleats, so to speak, I think it's going to be tough. So that's kind of exactly what you were saying. I mean, not to like bring everything back to my books, but The Boys of Baseball is the next generation of baseball players after The Perfect Game. So like I said, The Perfect Game follows Jack and Cassie. That's their names. The Boys of Baseball series includes their son. So there's a lot about Blake. Blake's entire baseball team just used to hang out. Like, we had a tiny 2-bedroom apartment, okay? Everybody else had big normal homes. Blake and I are living in like a 2-bedroom apartment, and that whole team is at our house every night. And I was like, why are you guys always here? Like, I mean, I love that you're here, but why? There's no room. There's no space. And they're just like, are you kidding? Like, we love being here. So it was just, I mean, I would walk out of my bedroom. I'm stepping over bodies on the floor, on the couch. My kitchen is trashed. But honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. But I also got to know and hear so much of the stuff that they were saying, that writing the Boys of Baseball series, the last book in the series is called Safe at First, and it was a very, very important story for me to tell. People get very sad because I write fiction, so they want everything to be super over the top, rainbows and butterflies. Right. And I write very realistic romance. So this is a total spoiler, but I don't care because it's not like everybody's going to read this book or not. But it was so important to me to write a story for a baseball player who has done nothing but want to get drafted, want to get to the MLB, want his shot and not have it, because I feel like it's something we don't talk about. Yep. I feel like these poor boys who have been so singularly focused, everything about what they do and their drive and their goals and their mentality and just everything that they think about is that shot of getting drafted. Well, what happens when it doesn't happen? What happens? They feel left behind. They also don't know what to do with themselves. And they don't know, like, if this is all I've ever wanted to be, what am I supposed to be now? And I feel like we fail them in a lot of ways. When that happens, we just kind of leave them to fend for themselves and figure it out. And it's really not fair.
I have a coach that I'd love to interview, and he's out of Wilmington University out in Delaware. And he always says, and it's a Division III school. He goes, you need to find something that these kids love that is not just baseball, because this baseball thing is going to end. And when it ends, it's going to hit hard. One of the quotes that you actually have in one of your books, I was looking these up earlier, and it says, I know that, but here's the thing about baseball, kitten. There's an expiration date for every single one of us who plays, and we all know it. Eventually, my baseball career will come to an end, and I can live with that, but I can't live without you. I love that quote. Aww. I mean, that's like perfect.
Oh, that's the sweetest game. That's Jack and Cassie.
It's so important. You bring up a great point. There is that time, and from a mom and a dad's perspective, how do you handle it? How can you be there for them the same as you've been there for them throughout their entire career? It doesn't matter if it ends at 14 or 15 and they don't make a certain team. It doesn't matter if they didn't make a college that they wanted to be in. There is so much disappointment in baseball. But on the flip side, this is what I love about baseball players. They know how to fail. And the good ones know how to win after failure. And I think that's so important. That's what I love about the game so much. I've always said baseball players are the best guys in business, the best sales guys, because it doesn't phase them. It doesn't phase them.
It's true. I mean, yeah, they've learned to fail from the second they started playing. I mean, they are a different breed. Like baseball, granted, I don't know any other athletes, like professional athletes, the way that I know baseball players, but it, I do know like girlfriends of other athletes, and it's, of course, every single professional athlete works hard, but I am far more partial to baseball players, and I feel like they work extremely hard. They have very, very limited time off. In that time off, it's not a free for all. I mean, it's just the work is never done, right? It's just never done. There's always somebody younger trying to beat you out of your spot. And, it's just, you're never secure in your spot. What a terrifying thing to think about. Like, what a mental, to be like, oh, I don't own this. I could get hurt tomorrow and then not get to play again. Or I could have some crappy games and they're going to put somebody else in there. And what if he's better than me consistently? What if, I mean, it just is this sport. People don't get it. I feel like people don't get it. Like when people say baseball is boring, I just look at them and I'm like, it's because you don't understand the game. Like you don't get it. You don't get it because you cannot watch this game and be bored.
I think that's a great point. And I think also the reason why people think it's boring is social media has killed the game. And the changing the game, putting a pitch clock in, reducing the
oh my
game.
Gosh.
Because sitting there and looking at the nuances, watching the nuances in a game, the 3-2 counts, the 1-2 counts, every count, there's something else different happening, right? The mindset of the pitcher, the catcher, the infield, the shifts. I mean, there's so many things. And when all you do is watch highlights are great, but highlights are a small part of the game of baseball.
Yeah. I mean, and so last year, in the Frontier League, they implemented the pitch clock. And it's so interesting. I don't know about the people that you've interviewed or what they say or what you say, but I remember that I was so resistant to it at first. And I was like, this sucks. Why are they doing this? Like, oh my gosh. But the players weren't bothered at all. So since it didn't bother them, I was like, oh, okay. Like, I guess it shouldn't bother me. Like, they were not upset about it. And it really did speed up the game tremendously.
Right.
Like, instead of it being like a 3.5 hour game, I was like, holy crap, this game is done already. So that was kind of nice, to be honest. But I think if the players were vocally upset and it affected their at bat or affected the pitchers being able to throw what they wanted to, me as a viewer, I would be more upset. And since they weren't, I am not. What about your side?
You bring up really good points. I think that it's like any rule change. The cool thing about baseball is the strategy behind the game changes, but that doesn't mean that there's not strategy. That's why I have no problem with it, right? It's not that they eliminated. See, I'm not a fan of the full-time DH. That rule to me has really, really, in my opinion, changed the structure of the game. When you it's seventh inning, the pitcher's doing really well. His spot is up to bat the next inning. Do you keep him in? Do you bring somebody out? So to me, that changes the fundamental game. A pitch clock to me just goes, hey, how about you stop dicking around? You don't need to
throw it a little
change
faster.
your batting glove 5 times before you get into the into the batter's box.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my opinion. There's some rules that I'm okay with, and you're right. Baseball players are also very resilient. You just tell them what they need to do, and they're going to do it. And I think that's. Not that they don't think. That's a very much a thinking man's game, but they're like that. What do I need to worry about it? That's not my responsibility to come up with whatever makes the game better or not better. I'm just going to figure it out. They're just like,
we don't need something else to get rattled about, right? Like we don't need anything else to be in our dome.
I'm such a historian that it is hard to connect the dots as you go through. I mean, as a Dodgers fan, the big names that have come through that organization. And so it's hard to now compare the two on a really good pitcher that now doesn't ever have to hit. Well, that's different than
Right.
what
Yeah,
what
no,
it
it's
is.
not the same.
Right. So anyway,
Yeah.
I mean, we can, I try to stay as neutral as I can on my podcast. Every once in a while, I do come out with my own opinion on certain things. But you know what? Anything to make the game more exciting. Mine is at the lower levels. What can we do to bring back the excitement of the game? And you brought up a couple of things. You know the game. That's why you love the game, because you understand the game. And that takes baseball IQ. One of the things that coaches all over the country are talking about that is starting to lack. Just from your opinion on a mom and your experience, the value and what you've seen through the years as far as understanding the game.
Okay, you glitched out. What was the question? Like, I'm going to pretend like I knew what he said, but I can't.
So you talked about the reason why you love the game so much is because you understand the game, and and you don't even want to really understand other games because baseball is it for you. Do you see a lack of understanding of the game and thus being the reason why people may not enjoy the game as much because they don't really understand it?
I mean, that's a fair question, but I don't really know. I feel like if people didn't understand the game and that made them not like it, they wouldn't go watch it. Do you know what I mean? I don't watch something I don't care about, which is basically every other sport. But actually that's not true because like my boyfriend is obsessed with hockey. And so I've gone to more hockey games in the last year than I've ever been in my life. I still don't care at all about the sport, but I'm like, oh, these are fun. I get why people like these. These are just kind of, and then I'm standing up, yelling, screaming for them to fight because where else can you like fight at a sport? So it's fun, but it does nothing for me the way that baseball does. And I think just because it's such a personal sport, a parent doesn't, like a mom doesn't have to understand the nuances of baseball the way that I do. And she's still going to love it because her baby's playing, right?
Yeah.
She's going to try and learn maybe like what, but none of that matters. You're going there to watch your kids, support your kids. So it doesn't really matter if you understand it or not. Same thing with the girlfriends. There's like a handful of girlfriends. Like I've met a bunch of the girlfriends when I'm at the games. They don't even know what's going on. And I just laugh because they say something and I'm like, oh my God, that's so cute. That's wrong. Like they don't know, they don't care, but they're there to support their boyfriend or their husband or whatever. So I feel like as far as like the fans that are in the stands, I feel like they're there because they love the sport. They're going there to have a good time. They're going there to socialize. I don't feel, I mean, it's a kind of like a hard question. If it wasn't for my boyfriend, I would not go watch other sports. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I would only go watch Blake and the Dodgers.
Right.
Like, that's it.
Okay, so summarize. You love baseball. Why do you love baseball?
I love baseball.
Why do you love it?
Why do I love baseball?
Yeah, as an author, you're good with words. Come up with a simple, short, few sentence statement of why you love baseball.
I love baseball because to me it's the most exciting sport. It's the most intense sport. There is so much that goes on. I love the players. I love the way they have to think about things, their intensity, their craziness, because baseball players are crazy. I just love all the nuances that go into this sport, and I love it because I understand it.
I love it.
It really is the truth. I do love it because I understand it the most.
And that's where I think what I was getting to is the understanding. Yeah. The baseball IQ is so important. And when you start eliminating the understanding through 10-second highlight clips, you're missing what happened.
You're missing so much.
Exactly. Think about a guy that hits a three-run bomb. That 3-run bomb was set up by multiple things that have happened over the course of that inning, right? It could have been a wild pitch to get somebody on. It could have got, his breaking pitch isn't working. He put a ball, kept the ball up in the strike zone. There's so many nuances in the game that it's not just a it's not just a home run. And that's why I love the game. Go ahead.
But I was going to say that level of understanding, though, that you have, that I have, that a handful of, more than handfuls of other people have, I think that's an unfair thing to put on just a normal human. I don't think that most people who enjoy baseball should have to have that level of understanding to enjoy it. Do you know what I mean?
That's fair.
The level of understanding that we have is like, that's a lot, right? Like that's getting crazy, like layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. And I just don't think that's required. I don't think that's required learning for the average, everyday, normal person to love baseball. I will tell you that The Perfect Game was sold in Brazil and was a huge, huge hit in Brazil, and they don't have baseball. And so just the fact that I could write a book that really does have a lot of baseball in it, and that it made them, like the readers would say, this makes me want to go to a baseball game. Like, this made me want to watch baseball. I don't even know what baseball is. Like, that's cool, right?
That is cool.
That's cool.
I love it. I mean, you're a promoter
I don't know
of the
what
game.
my point.
No.
I don't know what my point was.
No, your point is you have me standing corrected. Yeah, you can bring the really the perfect game. It is the perfect game. There's been multiple things, right? The Kevin Costner the perfect game. There's been a number of things around the baseball genre, and it has to do with romance. I look at Bull Durham. Bull Durham is
my God.
It's a romance movie with baseball.
Bull Durham is a romance movie. Bull Durham is the greatest baseball movie from a female. Like, obviously, I love For Love of the Game. I love Field of Dreams. I love 8 Men Out, right? Can't watch that movie without bawling. But like, Bull Durham for me, because the girl knows baseball, because she's got all these little tips and tricks, and like the total romance is there. I love that movie so much. Absolute classic.
Nobody could have played Susan Sarandon. Nobody would have been able to play. She was so good in that movie. I 100% agree.
Yeah, she's phenomenal.
I do wish that they still had the terrible buses. I still wish that players would have to put up with what they had to put up with.
I don't.
It made it even more sweet when they made it.
Blake they travel in the buses, like he's like, I don't know, we're going to Canada. It's going to take us like 32 hours to get there. And I'm like, I mean, I'm exaggerating, but it really takes like a long time. I feel for him. I'm just like, I'll come get you. Like, I feel for them, the amount of travel that they do and like the length that they drive. It's not like this glamorous thing. I mean, we all know that they're not playing at this level because it's glamorous and because they're getting so many perks. I mean, they're playing because they still love the game. They're playing because they still want to hopefully maybe, get a shot. The thing that's interesting with Blake is I think he's really one of the few players on his team that wasn't drafted. A lot of the guys were already drafted, actually even were in the show, and then now they're playing at this level. And I'm just, I feel for Blake. I feel for my son, like, oh my God, but you haven't even had that chance yet, because he was that perfect timing of 2020 being his, last season, and just everything disintegrating and blowing up, and just the way that it went. I'm happy that he's still playing pro ball, but I feel like that whole group of kids really got screwed out of an opportunity.
Yeah, no,
and guys that were already in the minor leagues that got cut.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they cut a whole lot of positions.
Yeah,
I think
they're all on Blake's team.
Yeah. They're all in the Frontier League. They're all in there's a number
American
of professional
Association.
Leagues. Exactly. They're everywhere. Now, and you know what, though? I did just interview a coach they were a post-collegiate professional team, and he made a great statement yesterday. And he said, if you can still play, don't stop. He said, you'll regret it. And I think that's one of the things about the game. We're only young so far. We know there's an expiration, as you quoted. Yeah. There's an expiration. And so play it because you love it. And you're going to regret it if you don't keep it going.
That's absolutely how I feel. I'll still help Blake. Like, financially or if whatever, because I'm like, I know that you're not going to be able to do this forever, and I want you to do this as long as you still want to. They're paying you to play. You still want to, like, it's their dream. I'm not here to take away his dream. I'm here to help him get it.
Yep. That's the consummate baseball mom right there.
Of course.
Wants their son to be happy and to pursue, and will do anything to support that. And I think
of course,
that's exactly what it takes. So I appreciate that. Jenn, it's been a privilege having you on. Unique little, just a different perspective and insight in the world of baseball. Again, Jenn Sterling, the award-winning New York Times best-selling author of both the Boys of Baseball and the Perfect Game series. Jenn, thank you for joining the Pitch Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Don't tell anyone, but I think this was my favorite podcast that I've ever done. I mean, tell everyone on your podcast, but don't tell like my author podcasts.
Hey, trust me, that clip's going to be one of our clips on Instagram. Thanks.
Woohoo! I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I don't care.
All right. It has been done recording. Here's what I need you to do because it's on your phone.
Okay.